Just an old hard rocker running from the dusk till dawn. Yeah, I'm just a midnight walker, wonder what was taking so long. When the sun goes down, that's when I sing my song. Gonna run you down, don't you know that you're on my trail? I'm gonna run you down, don't you know that I'm on your tail? Make those mountains fall, as long as my feet don't fail. When I get so high, then why my heart is feeling so low? Yeah. When I get so high, then why my heart is feeling so low? I can't stop now. I got too many miles to go. I'm just an old hard rocker running from the dusk till dawn. Yeah, I'm just a midnight walker, wondering what's taking so long. When the sun goes down, that's when I sing my song. Just an old hard rocker running from the dusk till dawn. Yeah, I'm just a midnight walker, wondering what was taking so long. When the sun goes down, that's when I sing my song. Down, don't you know that you're on my trail? I'm gonna run you down, don't you know that I'm on your tail? Make those mountains fall, as long as my feet don't fail. it gets so high, then why my heart is feeling so low. Yeah, when I get so high, then why my heart is feeling so low. I can't stop now. I got too many miles to go. I'm just an old hard rocker, running from the dusk till dawn. Yeah, I'm just a midnight walker, wondering what's it taking so long. When the sun goes down, that's when I'll sing my song. Just an old hard rocker, running from the dusk till dawn. Yeah, I'm just a midnight walker, wondering what's taking so long. When the sun goes down, that's when I sing my song. On my trail, I'm gonna run you down. Don't you know that I'm on your tail? Make those mountains fall, as long as my feet don't fail. When it gets so high, then why my heart is feeling so low. Yeah, when I get so high, then why my heart is feeling so low. I can't stop now. I got too many miles to go. I'm just an old hard rocker, running from the dusk till dawn. Yeah, I'm just a midnight walker, wondering what's it taking so long. When the sun goes down, that's when I'll sing my song. Just an old hard rocker, running from the dusk till dawn. Yeah, I'm just a midnight walker, wondering what's taking so long. When the sun goes down, That's when I sing my song. On my trail, I'm gonna run you down. Don't you know that I'm on your tail? Make those mountains fall. As long as my feet don't fail. When it gets so high, then why my heart is feeling so low. Yeah. When I get so high, then why my heart is feeling so low. I can't stop now. I got too many miles to go. I'm just an old hard rocker, running from the dusk till dawn. Yeah, I'm just a midnight walker, wondering what's it taking so long. When the sun goes down, that's when I'll sing my song.
All right, everybody, I believe we are live. I'm Chris Twiggs, 16-time Hard Rock finisher, board of directors member, and guy who is really thrilled to be here to talk about all about the course. We are going to be answering questions that we have received about the Hard Rock course, course conditions, and things along those lines. Joining me right here is Trevor Peterson, who is in charge of all of the course work that's happening, including all of the official course work days that are happening.
So I'm in charge of the 2 days the week before Hard Rock, where we work to make sure the trail is in top condition. We, carefully place extra stones along the way just to make sure you get the full experience. But we do cut out all the down trees, best of our ability.
There you go. We've also got Dale Garland here on the screen with us.
Hi, everybody.
Of course, run director. Aren't you just excited about Hard Rock Week coming up soon?
Oh man, I am so excited, Chris. It's like I know we talk frequently about Billy Simpson. It was like he always talked about this being Christmas, just like Christmas time. So yeah,
it is so much like Christmas time. Our course director Brett Sublett is having a few technical difficulties. He will be joining us soon. We do have a backup plan with a sock puppet to represent Brett if necessary. But we do know there are a lot of questions that people ask specifically about course navigation and how the course will be marked. And obviously, Brett's the best person to answer those questions. But since we've got Trevor here right now, Trevor, I know you live here in Ouray, Colorado. Can you tell us a little bit about what the weather has been like and what people can expect when they get out here?
So weather's been pretty dry for the past little bit, although today is the exception. We've got our first set of storms coming in right now, so I'd highly recommend that everybody make sure their DWR is refreshed on their rain jackets for the race day. But with snowmelt, the snowmelt has gone pretty fast. I think at the official Red Mountain weather station, we are at 0 inches of snow water equivalent, which is a little bit faster than normal. Up in the big basins above tree line, we still have a fair amount of snow hanging on, and that will probably melt out over the next few weeks up to race day. There will always be snowfields because it's hard rock, but those will be melting quickly. So today is not a great indicator of what it'll be like on race day. Right now, the trails that we've been able to get on seem to be in pretty good condition. I'm just getting geared up to start scouting some of those out. I know Chris has also done some work on that. So things look to be shaping up in a good direction.
Yeah, yeah. Are there it's hard to say, as you said, a lot of the snow that's there is going to be gone by race day, by run day. Are there any sections that you're particularly concerned about, or that you think the runners need to have on their radar?
In terms of snow, I can't think of anything out of the ordinary. I will expect snow at the typical places like Virginia's Pass, and maybe some snowfields over towards the east side of the course. But I think with the weather conditions we have ahead of us, good chance it'll be pretty dry by race day. It should be drier than last year for sure.
Yeah.
In terms of the down trees, we only know of one section at this point in time that's in especially bad shape. So that's definitely going to be on the docket for the trail work weekend to get that cleaned up.
Great, great. Brett, it looks like you've joined us. Can I know maybe you can hear us? Can you hear us, and can we hear you?
I can hear you.
We hear you too.
And we hear you.
Excellent. All right.
So excited to have you join us. Brett, have you been able to get out onto the Hard Rock course at all yet this summer? Or are you still waiting to do that?
I have not. No, I have had communication with a lot of friends that have been on the course. So I've had some spotters out there that I've gotten some feedback from.
Great. And
full disclosure, Brett just jetted in from Iceland a couple days ago. So
Nice.
Wow. So conditions here might be better than what he's been experiencing in Iceland. That could be, in fact, that could just be the theme for this year. Hard Rock.
Yeah.
Better than Iceland.
At least it's not Iceland.
Yeah.
Apologies to anyone who's watching this from Iceland. Brett, are there any sections of the course? I think this is one of the main things that people are going to want to know. Because people have been studying the course, they've been studying GPX tracks from past years. Are there any changes to the Hard Rock course that we can anticipate this year?
The only one, and Dale and I were just discussing it this morning, is at about the last 2 blocks to the finish line. That we're not going to go down Reese. We're going to go to Snowden. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And
Brett assured me it would be marked that way.
Okay.
yeah.
Is that a disqualification if people get lost in town?
Well, if they get lost in town, Brett or Trevor, yeah.
I can just imagine a Barkley situation where somebody comes into the rock from the wrong direction and somehow they get bugled out. So we want to avoid that if at all possible.
Right. And we're joking about this a little bit, but it is something that, and everybody will hear me say this a couple of times, but we really have a good working relationship with the town of Silverton and the San Juan Sheriff Office, and so we want to make sure that we're honoring those requests that they have done. And so one of those is around parking and the traffic around the school gym. And so this movement from Reese Street to Snowden is a cooperative thing between us and the town of Silverton to make sure that we're trying to still let people live their lives. Because believe it or not, there are people in the San Juans who don't know that Hard Rock is going on. Believe it or not.
It is hard to believe, but I've bumped into a couple of those people over the years.
Yeah.
So other than that small section at the very end, though, people can look back at the GPX from last year, and I don't think there were any real changes last year. So really, from the last time Hard Rock went in the clockwise direction, we can rely on that as our guide.
Right.
Great. That's great news. So I'm going to jump in. We've got a bunch of questions that people have submitted, and I want to go ahead and ask those. We've already hit a couple of them. I'm wondering, one of them, this is another one for Brett. I don't see Brett here, but I hope we can hear him. Brett, Somebody's asking, what is the course marking protocol? How often will there be flags? Which side of the trail? What can you tell us about how Hard Rock will be marked this year?
Maybe yes, maybe no.
All right, I'm not going to accept Brett's silence to mean that it will not be marked.
Yeah.
I won't accept that. Dale, do you want to talk about how it's been marked since Brett has come on as the course director?
Yeah, the course obviously is going to be marked, but again, it's not going to be marked every quarter mile or half mile. So self-reliance and knowing the course and having a familiarity with the course is going to be very, very, very important. But major trail intersections where decision points are, where somebody could basically get lost, will definitely be marked. I would defer to you as a 16-time finisher about what you think in terms of how the course is marked, because it's going to be about the same as
I will say, in my experience, Brett does a fantastic job, and he's not doing it alone. He's got some folks that are helping him with the marking. And Brett, are you back?
I'm back. I don't know if you can hear me.
I hear you great. What can you tell us about your plan for how often people can expect to see flags on the course in different sections? Are you going to be marking primarily on the left side or the right side? What do you know right now?
Yeah, and I could hear Dale speaking a minute ago. So echoing what he said, some of it is dependent upon where.
Yeah. So I will say, we've lost him again. I will say that Brett is absolutely the best course director we've had in the last 3 years. And but he's done a fantastic job. As Dale said, the course is going to be marked well enough. It's good. The better you know the course, the better off you're going to be, obviously. It's not going to be marked as heavily as some of the other courses out there, like you may have experienced. But I don't think there are too many people that are going to be super lost. The places where people do get lost, we can probably predict and give you some guidelines to. What would be the places you would think that people need to pay attention?
That definitely looking at, there's some sections that are off trail. So as you read through the course description, knowing what those sections are, those are going to be areas where you're going to need to have extra alertness. I think Engineer Basin, Putnam, where else? Out towards Pole Creek. And Pole Creek will have a lot of trail intersections, so that's another thing to be aware of, where there's roads and trails intersecting, or maybe roads and there's no trail and you have to keep going on not a trail. I know last year people had issues on Buffalo Boy Ridge, going the opposite direction. Maybe this year with going clockwise, that won't be as big of an issue. But that's an area, any area where there's not an official trail is definitely something to be paying attention to right now as you're making your plan.
Yeah, and I would say also think about when you're going to be in the dark. That's when you're most likely to miss a marker, and they do reflect some light. But think about when you're going to be in the dark, and if there's an area that you pretty much can count on that it's going to be in the dark. If it's not a heavy trail, that's an area you might study or prioritize getting out on prior to the start of Hard Rock. Probably most people during, some of the super fast people are going to hit Pole Creek when it's still dark. I'm not. It's going to be broad daylight for me, but I might get over
Engineer area for a lot of people.
That might be an area where it's in the dark. So that's an area that I would be particularly cautious of. I would also say the last 5 miles after you come down, know where your turns are off of the Jeep Road. When you're coming down toward Arastra Gulch, know where you get onto that good trail.
Because that's another section where there's a pretty high trail density.
Right.
And I think, if you can overlay on one of the mapping apps, you could almost just look at that and circle, is there a trail right now? If not, pay attention. Or if there's a lot of trails there, pay attention. That'll be a way to help avoid playing for some of those issues.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think I'd also like to add, you guys, that when there's long sections of road, say down, let's say down from Governor Basin to Uray, you're not going to see a whole lot of course markings. There'll be a few just for reinforcement, but when there's not a place that you can turn off, and you need to know that you're headed to Uray, there's not going to be a whole lot of marking.
Exactly. There are only a couple of little forks in the road when you're coming down that long road. And so look, when you get to those forks, look for those course markers to make sure. I did have one year. I've been coming out to Uray, Colorado for a very long time, but I did have one year when I was coming down that road in the dark, following another runner, and that runner turned toward Lower Camp Bird Mine.
Ooh,
and
that would have been tough.
And so did I, right? I know not to go there, but I followed too. And it wasn't until the headlamp was coming back at me that I realized, oh yeah, of course, I shouldn't have made that. That's
We're not going uphill yet.
We're not going uphill yet. So that's, look at those intersections. Those are the spots to be cautious of.
And I would, just so we don't, I know Brett would want to say some of this stuff. There's a couple of things he will, at the runner's briefing, kind of fill everybody in on whether, because by then everything will have been marked, and he can say, look for the markers on your left, look for your markers on your right. We heavily marked these areas. So this isn't going to be the only time that you're going to hear about course marking and where and how many and that kind of stuff. They'll be kind of taken care of again at the runner's briefing. He's also going to do a course update on Thursday morning during Camp Hard Rock before the runner's briefing for any last minute conditions, once Trevor and everybody gets eyes on the course, and where there might be some issues and that kind of thing as well.
Exactly. So let's move on with the questions. Brett's having some issues with regard to a thunderstorm where he is. So he may get back on with us, but let's go through the rest of these questions and make sure that we have. And if you're watching this and you have questions, obviously if you're watching it live and you have questions, please put them in the chat and we'll make sure that we get to those as well. If you're watching this later, email us. But, we're not gonna see them, not be able to respond to those. So here's a good question, and coming from Florida, this is a question I certainly had my first couple of years at Hard Rock. For those uncomfortable with traversing on snow, what advice can you give?
So I think the nice thing is that I wouldn't anticipate a lot of traversing, but there's going to be a lot of up and down on the snow. And depending on what time you hit it, you kind of have to treat it differently. If it's nice and cold and refrozen, you might just be able to walk right up it. If it's a little bit softer, you can kick steps in. And if it's a nasty kind of in-between iciness, you might have to lean really heavily on poles or wear some lightweight crampons. I think there's a lot of different runner crampons. I believe Catula has some wonderful ones that'll be available before on race day if you're getting there without. But the places that we know that there may be some coming down off closer to the day of the race, but the higher consequence areas, we try to have things taken care of in that way.
Yeah, and I was just up at Virginia a couple of days ago, full snow.
Yep.
All three pitches on the Uray side, full snow. I did not go over onto the Telluride side, but the first part there was pretty solid snow as well.
And I would anticipate that will be pretty clear by race day. It's generally south facing, and that'll heat up. But the areas on the northern side, you're looking at the passes, you can probably track that out where there might be some snow to anticipate.
And I will say everybody's comfort level on snow is going to be a little bit different. For anybody that's going to be out there, don't follow me across the snow. I'm not from here. But I will say I will not carry any sort of crampons with me. I have used them in the past. I'm not any better with them than I am without them. So
yeah, and I think that's kind of how I would approach it as well. I think for the early season stuff, poles work really well. They post down. You can use them as a little ice axe if it's really bad, but I wouldn't anticipate it being a overwhelming issue this year.
There you go. I would say that's exactly right. The poles make a big difference. I probably, if I didn't use poles, I might be a little bit more concerned about that. But that's another piece of advice I have for everybody out there is go ahead
Use
and
poles.
use poles.
Yep. Get used to them now.
Absolutely.
Don't wait till
Yeah.
race day.
No.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So another question, and Dale, you might be best positioned of those of us that are on here now to answer this question. What do we mean when we say Hard Rock is a closed course?
Right.
What does that mean?
Right. A closed course means that the course should be run as it's articulated in the course description in the GPX files. And now there is some flexibility, you know, like in Pole Creek, we're not going to say if you step 2 feet off the course, you know, that's an issue. But cutting things like cutting switchbacks, finding the path of least resistance to a summit or something like that, that's not part of being a closed course. So the course is designed to be 102.5 miles long, and it's designed to be run as it's been marked and it's been you know, written about in the course description and GPX files.
Just got a note from our director asking for clarification on where we think there'll be snow. There will still be snow up at Virginia's,
Definitely.
probably somewhere between Animas and top of Hands. There's going to be some snow in there somewhere.
But it probably won't be terrible because
Right.
if you think about how that course runs, you're not going to be coming up anything where you're truly going up the north side. Maybe some snow across the top of Handy's and some of those kind of rock holes there.
Yeah, I went up yesterday from Uray, Bear Creek, all the way up to where the engineer aid station will be. I passed a very small patch of snow, no bigger than the table that we're sitting at, and it definitely will not be there by next month. So you could expect no snow at all between Uray and O Point. So that section is definitely going to be clear. So it's not going to be a heavy snow year.
No.
Okay, so some other questions that we've had submitted here in the last few days. Are there sections of the course where the water, even filtered, is considered unsafe to drink? That's a good question. I always carry a filter, and I'm always anxious to use it if I'm going to be pulling stuff from a stream. But as a local here, is there any place out there that even with a filter, you just wouldn't?
I think a lot of it depends on kind of the weather conditions. If we were getting a lot of rain right then, I might feel differently about some of the sources. Personally, I probably would not drink any water from the Governor Basin Road down to Uray. Wouldn't do any of that during this time of year. And then I wouldn't drink any water from the Uncompahgre when you're going along Chris's absolute favorite section of the course, the pointless ups and downs. And yeah, someone just threw into the chat. There are a couple places there's one place on Campbell Road known as Drinking Cup where you can drink water reliably. That's filtered through hundreds of feet of sandstone, so wouldn't be concerned there. I spend most of my time on the Uray side of the mountains, so other people might know more about the Silverton side, but if there's a lot of mining activity there, I probably wouldn't drink the water. If it doesn't look clear, probably wouldn't drink the water. And yeah, I think that's definitely even disregarding, if you have a filter, even then I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. And if you are going to be drinking from any of those sources, make sure you do have a filter.
Yeah. There's a lot of animals up there that would love to pass off some Giardia to you.
Exactly right.
Yeah, I don't think it's a real good strategy to use your primary water source from a filter and filter along the way, and just so I don't think that's a key to success at this year.
No, I definitely agree. I carry one because I have had a couple of years when I've been slower than expected between aid stations and have run out of water. And on a hot year like we had last year, it's important that you have a contingency. You have a way to pull water if you need to. But that certainly should not be your game plan. to
especially trying to plan right now. I think it's hard to say whether the monsoons will have set in or not yet. And if they haven't, which for the past few years, they really haven't come until after Hard Rock, that'd be a tough situation to be counting on water sources that aren't there when you get there.
Yeah. So obviously everybody's water needs will be a little bit different, but I carry two big bottles and a filter with attached to another bottle if I need it. So that's my recommendation there.
Yeah.
A couple of other questions that deal with water. On race day in American Basin, before summiting Handies, will there be any stream crossings with water flowing to fill up water flasks? Again, I think don't count on it.
But maybe
there could be, right?
Yeah.
Don't count on it. Go ahead and I will say that's a long section, right? That's a long section between Animas and Burroughs. And so I certainly will, when my first bottle is empty in that section, I will refill it using my filter the first chance I get, just so that I've got that in reserve. And I think that's maybe a good practice for most people.
Yep. And I think definitely before summiting Handies, I wouldn't count on having any water. The far side, Grizzly Gulch, may be more likely to have some water there, but again, tough to count on.
We have a couple of questions that deal with, I think these are crew questions more than anything else. And Dale, maybe you can help us out. I know they're questions about how long it takes to get from one place to another.
Right.
There are some challenges this year with driving. Can you explain those?
Yeah, and I saw those questions too. I think, and Trevor, you can kind of elaborate if you want to on the electrical association work. But if you've been following Colorado news at all, you know that the bridge over Blue Mesa Reservoir, which is on Highway 50 between Gunnison and Montrose, is closed. Now, the last report I heard from Colorado State Patrol was it will be open by Hard Rock time. And you're going, well, how does that affect us? That affects everything on the Lake City side, the drive around to Lake City, the drive around to Sherman, all that kind of thing. So it's worth staying abreast of that situation. And then Trevor, I'm going to defer to you because you're monitoring this, or at least pretty closer about.
Yeah. So the bridge over the Blue Mesa, I believe they're hoping to have that open for alternating traffic by July 4th.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a week ahead of Hard Rock. We all feel that that's a very optimistic timeline. But that's their hope. And then there's a whole slew of work. I think there are maybe 3 separate places between Ouray and Montrose. So getting around to Lake City is going to be tough if you don't have the ability to drive over the pass. So that, I would pay attention when you're getting closer to it because it's hard to forecast out that far. Going back and forth between Ouray and Silverton, there's some anticipated work stoppages. I haven't been paying a ton of attention yet because we're still
pretty
3
early
weeks out.
Right.
So that will change because that's how it all seems to go. But anticipate there will be some road closures between Ouray and Silverton going through the week of Hard Rock.
And when we talk about, to those of you who aren't used to traveling over Red Mountain Pass or to,
yes.
Yeah, that's a whole different, right? I mean, we've all seen the pictures, but also when we talk about a road closure, we're not talking about closing of the road completely. We're talking about delayed traffic and that kind of thing.
And so what's happened in the past with that, if they have to do transport things in a helicopter back and forth across the road, they have to close it. Typically, that'll mean maybe a 20 to 30-minute period of time where the road is closed, but then you have traffic queuing up in both directions. And depending on any other circumstances, maybe the road is one lane at that point. So then they have to do alternating traffic to get people through. Budgeting extra time, I think, is the most important piece of that. Right.
And I would agree with 100%, Trevor. So I noticed there were a couple of questions about specific things. Silverton to Cunningham is probably about 30 minutes, give or take, depending on your
Yep.
skill level. And I think the other one was from
Silverton to Sherman. is the other
Silverton to
question.
Sherman. Kind of depends, as Trevor kind of alluded to, whether or not you're going to drive over the pass or not. Driving over Cinnamon Pass, couple hours.
Couple hours.
Yeah, couple hours.
And that's not like, and for anybody that hasn't been here, that's not like driving over Red Mountain Pass.
Right.
This is a high clearance
Yep.
Jeep road. You want to be experienced driving a 4-wheel drive on that type of terrain.
Right.
Otherwise, you'll get to make the local news in ways that will not be
Yeah.
flattering to
100%.
us.
Right.
Or you. So please check into that.
Yeah.
I-
The other drive around to Sherman, I mean, given the whole thing with the Blue Mesa Reservoir and stuff like that, may be better to drive Silverton to Durango to South Fork and that.
Well,
I mean, I don't know.
Because I think that would be about 6 hours to drive
Yeah.
around that way.
Right.
Yeah, you may not be making that.
Right.
So this might be the year to trust the aid
Yeah.
station volunteers to take care of your runner there.
Yeah. At
'Cause
Sherman.
that's going to be a tough one to get around to.
It
Right.
would be. I really want to emphasize to people how important it is to use drop bags and send drop bags out to the aid stations. Please take my advice. Do not be relying on your crew to meet you at aid stations. They will. They want to be there. Your crew want to be there.
Mhm.
And rest assured that if your crew arrives at an aid station ahead of you, they will be able to get your bag from the volunteers, set up your nice little seating area with, obviously with back rubs and foot massage and all the things that you're going to have at the aid station from your crew. But if something happens and they're not able to get there because of one of these roadwork things, or we've actually seen, I was helping out with the Uray 100 one year, and their aid station that was up at Ironton was cut off from every place else because of a mudslide that happened during the race. There's no reason that couldn't happen during Hard Rock.
Yeah.
And so even the great road that goes over Red Mountain Pass could become impassable for cars during Hard Rock. And if that happens, you'll be very glad if you know that your drop bag has already been,
Right.
is already out at
Yeah.
the aid
Right.
stations.
Right. Yeah.
We
We got some questions about long descents. I see. Steepest
Okay.
descents in this direction. How long are
What?
they?
That's a good question.
They're not long.
Well,
They're
the
just
steepest descent.
steep.
Yeah, okay. So the longest descent. That's a good point.
Yeah,
The
it's a good
longest
question.
Longest
Yeah.
descent in this direction would be Virginia's to
Virginia.
Uray,
Mhm.
Right.
which is also one of the steepest for a very short section,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So I think Virginia's down to Uray is a pretty sustained, what we'd say it's 13,000 feet at Virginia.
Yes.
So you're
Down to
talking
8.
5,500 feet of descent in 10 miles. So that's a pretty sustained long descent. And yeah, definitely Virginia's right at the top is super steep.
Well, there are 3 pitches coming down from Kroger's Canteen. The first pitch is super steep. Second pitch is not quite as much, but it's very short. And then the last pitch is also very steep. Right now, all 3 of those sections are completely snow-packed.
Mhm.
I would love it if they're still snow-packed during Hard
Way
Rock.
smoother that way.
It's fantastic, but may not be. Either way, they're going to be fast because
Yeah.
it's scree if it's not.
Right.
Yep. And we would be remiss if we didn't mention Grand Swamp Pass.
North
which
side.
is
Yeah. Yeah.
Classic steep descent. And that will be something that I think if you have the opportunity to go scout that out ahead of time, well worth doing if you're unfamiliar with it.
Yes, I got up there one year during Hard Rock, and somebody that was doing his first Hard Rock got up there. He'd not seen that side. He'd been to the Island Lake side,
Mhm.
but he'd not seen that side, and he lost his breath when he saw what we go down.
Yeah.
So it can be intimidating,
Mhm.
but no one has died there yet. And if you're the first one,
Yeah.
we might name something after you.
There you go. There you go. Chris, and I think it might be a good time just to plug what you're doing in terms of the course
I would love to
orientation
do
hikes
that.
and stuff like that. I think this is a perfect opportunity and a venue to do that.
Absolutely, it is. So we are starting. It's a week from tomorrow, I believe. Next Friday, I believe, is when we start our orientation hikes, and these are open to everyone. You do not have to be entered in Hard Rock this year. This could be someone who wants to do it later, who's coming out to volunteer. It could be a pacer, and I'm especially interested in people who have done Hard Rock in the past. If you want to come and help with these hikes, please do. So there is a list on the website on the Camp Hard Rock schedule. It shows where we're going to be meeting and when we're going to be meeting. And we are looking forward to covering almost the entirety of the course. There are a couple of sections that we're not going to cover. The road between Burroughs Park and Sherman, we're not going to bother running all of that. It's flat. You can't get lost there. We're not going to do the pointless ups and downs because I hate the pointless ups and downs outside of your A. And so I refuse to lead anybody on a hike through there.
It's super scenic though.
Yeah. So
missing out.
Call Trevor if you want a guide to take you through the pointless ups and downs. But almost, and then the road from Governors down to Uray, we probably will not do that. Although if anybody that day decides to run down from there, it's almost entirely downhill. And if you want that experience, and that's great. So we are looking forward to it. Obviously, if there's some reason that we need to change something on the schedule, we'll let you know. Last year, we did have to make a change because the day that we were planning on going over Little Giant, it was not passable. There was too much snow at the top, and it would have been dangerous for us to go there that day. So we did an alternate hike. So we will, between now and then, we'll continue to monitor conditions. I've gotten out on a couple of sections of the course. Trevor, you're going out this weekend.
Yep, so I'm gonna go check out a few places over towards Silverton just to start seeing how things are melting out there. I saw some video from the top of Putnam, which looked great. Snow patches, but nothing super large. So I think we're in good shape up there.
There you go. So we will, and what we'll do during those hikes is we will take pictures of any place that there's a down tree or my hike yesterday, there was one down tree and there's one little section that a little bit of trail maintenance could be done. I took pictures of those. So we will be communicating with Trevor and with Brett following those hikes so that they know what the conditions are closer to run day. And that way they can get out there if necessary and make some adjustments. And if you're not going to be out here for those, you can't get on those, we will post on the Instagram account for Hard Rock. We'll make sure that highlights from those hikes each day show up on that account so that people can get that information. And I'm Chris.Twiggs at hardrock.com, hardrock100.com. You can please email me if you have questions about what's going on during that as well. So would love to answer those questions. So thank you, Dale, for setting, and thank you for letting me do that. That was something that we started last year for the first time.
It was good.
It was fantastic.
It is good, and it's one of those things too that people come to enjoy the San Juans, and this is a good way to do it, and to learn, and then like you say, it doesn't necessarily have to be just those people who are runung. It could be a family kind of thing if you want to bring somebody.
These are not runs. We are not racing. Right. These are going to be at a nice slow speed, and they end the last one of these. So we start next Friday, and then it'll be every day thereafter, except for 4th of July. We're not doing 4th of July, and then not the Sunday prior to Hard Rock. Those Saturday and Sunday prior to Hard Rock are coursework days that Trevor's leading, and so we agreed not to do a hike on Sunday so that there are people that want to do some course, trail maintenance, but also want to go on a hike, they'd be able to do that. Right. And the last one of these we're doing will be Monday prior to Hard Rock. If Monday prior to Hard Rock is too close to the run for you to be a part of that, that's okay. Perfectly understandable. But that's the course, the route that we're going to be doing. And my experience is that most people are still doing some sort of a hike that close, even if it's easy and scouting things out.
Right.
Do you want to talk for a second about what sort of work people might expect to do when for the trail
Sure.
work that you're going to be
I can
leading?
do that. We have been really blessed with volunteers the past 2 years that I've been involved in leading the trail work. And what we're going to be looking at doing is identifying some key areas that need some attention prior to the course. Areas that we've put work in previously have been the Bear Creek switchbacks coming up out of Uray, cutting out some of the willows along Pole Creek, and cutting a bunch of big logs out of the trail to make it easier and less of a hurdling event. That's the sort of work we're doing. This year, it's actually shaping up really nicely. I'm very excited that the work we've been able to do in the past couple years has mitigated big areas. So I think this might be a trail of type year where we're just kind of hiking along, widening the course in areas where it needs it. So think about overgrown willows and how frustrating that is to try to move through, opening that up to a much wider corridor,
Right.
so that type of thing. Just taking care of little edges where maybe the water is eroding and we need to reroute some things. But I think this year it's going to be a lot of hiking with some fun implements like pickaxes and saws. So if that sounds fun, definitely come join us on Saturday and Sunday before Hard Rock.
Right.
Fantastic.
And a
I'll
big
bring
thank
my
you to,
pickaxe.
and a big thanks to Uray Trails Group and Durango Trails for supporting our work and providing tools and support and that kind of thing too. Yeah. And to
Going back
Tailwind and Nathan for making sure we're hydrated.
Yeah, so
and
we've
that
had
kind of thing.
the volunteer or some of the sponsors have really stepped up this year, and we will have Tailwind available for the course workers, and Nathan is going to be providing a discount code, which is really awesome. So, as an extra bonus for the work you're doing.
Wow.
Look forward to it.
That's fantastic. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Had a question about going back to transportation. Somebody was asking, what type of vehicles do you recommend to get to the various aid stations? Obviously, we mentioned if you're going to go over Cinnamon Pass, that needs to be a high clearance 4-wheel drive vehicle. You don't need anything special to get, obviously, to Telluride. What are some of the other aid stations that you can think might have special consideration?
Yeah, I think two. I think there's two. One, probably if you're planning on going to Chapman, over Pass. I mean, as 4-wheel drive passes go, it's not that bad. But there is a short section on the Telluride side that is, with full scree and that kind of stuff that is challenging if you're not used to 4-wheel driving. And I would not suggest doing that in a sedan. I think that's
or a box truck.
Or a box truck. Yeah.
I think on that note, be aware that many of these roads are narrow. So if you have one of the more modern, wider 4-wheel drive vehicles, it still might be a problem, especially if you are not comfortable driving the Jeep roads. I once had an issue, I was going up in a kind of classic Jeep, going up the Ophir Pass side, and someone was coming down in a Ford Raptor, which is still smaller than a lot of the current trucks, and they were having a real tough time getting down. So if you're going to be choosing to try to make those connections, scout it out ahead of time.
Right.
Definitely don't want to be getting there the morning of trying to make a connection and discovering it won't work.
Good advice. Good advice.
And the other one,
you can get out to Chapman with 2-wheel drive. You do not need any special vehicles for that.
Yeah, that's right.
You're parking in
Ophir, right, and then hiking to the aid station. Correct.
Yeah.
The other one is, and this is a pretty major aid station, is Animas Forks, and although again it's not it's not high clearance, but it's not something you want to do in, again, just a regular old passenger vehicle. The road between Eureka and Animas Forks can be pretty tough.
Yep. And I think one of the things to be aware of is the tire quality. There are definitely some rocks on there that will slice a hole in your tire.
Right.
So that would, again, be a tough day for everybody, because then everyone behind you also won't be able to get there.
Right.
Speaking on getting to Animas Forks, Dale, last year we introduced a special protocol for getting out there. We're going a different direction this year. Are we going to be following that same protocol?
No, not in this direction. In consultation with our aid station director, Brad Bishop, who's running this year, and our aid station captain, Julie Blanda, we think that given how far people are going to be spread out and that kind of thing, and the times at which they're going to be arriving at Animas Forks, that it can be just kind of a regular, just drive to Animas Forks. Yeah.
Yep.
I will put I guess a plug or whatever into this. Remember, we're not the only ones on these roads. And I think Trevor kind of alluded to that as well. So practicing good communication skills, recognizing that some people are there to enjoy the San Juans who aren't there necessarily as part of Hard Rock. So being a good ambassador of Hard Rock and that kind of thing is all part of life on the road and life on as you move around the San Juans.
That's right. And for those that are going to be crewing, when your runner leaves Ouray and the next time you're going to see your runner is at Animas Forks, you do not have to break the speed limit to get over Red Mountain Pass and then over through Silverton to get out. You've got plenty of time. Please grab dinner or breakfast, whatever the case may be.
Depending on the time of the day, you're good.
Depending on the time of day, grab something to eat. And then when you do make your drive through Silverton, make sure you check the tracker to see where the runner is. If the runner hasn't gotten to Engineer Aid Station yet, hang out for a while, grab another bite to eat.
Right. And I would say, and we talked about roads. I think that is the one road that Engineer Pass is not for the faint of heart. And so I think, it's better unless you're very experienced at four-wheel driving is to do your Ouray over Red Mountain Pass through Silverton up to Animas Forks and not try to go over Engineer Pass down to Animas Forks unless you want a thrill of a lifetime.
Yeah, especially since for a lot of people you'd be getting to do that at night.
Yes.
So that would be extra fun.
Yeah. Not my thing. We had a question about the leave no trace policy.
I'm glad you brought that up.
We want to make sure people understand this because some races have strict you're disqualified types of policies. So what do people need to be cautious of, and what are we going to tell them?
Yeah, we're not going to disqualify you, but one thing that we've realized is that the San Juans are becoming everybody's playground, and it's incumbent on all of us to practice those good, low impact kinds of practices and have those kinds of habits. So we, in conjunction with San Juan Mountains Association, with the United States Forest Service, our BLM permit, all those people are really hoping that people will spend the time to learn the leave no trace principles, because you're going to hear me say it time and time again, that these are things that are important about stepping off the trail and not cutting switchbacks and all those kinds of things that we know we should be doing, but sometimes it's a little bit temptation or out of convenience. Maybe you don't want to take the time, but if you look at things in the macro or in the big picture, we want to leave the San Juans in as good a shape as we found them.
And I just want to piggyback on what Dale said, because I had a really interesting experience at my last 100-miler that I ran. But tossing your apple cores or banana peels, that's still not leave no trace, because those things do take a while to break down. So definitely don't just drop something, even if it's going to biodegrade eventually. I don't think any of us are saying, oh, you dropped some of your M&Ms, you have to make sure you pick up all of them before you proceed. But be thoughtful about the choices you're making around here, because they do stack up over time. And if everyone threw a couple banana peels on the race, that'd be a lot of banana peels to break down over the next few years.
It would. It would.
Yeah.
Someone in the chat on YouTube is asking a question about about crew and pacers, and I want to make sure we highlight where are the aid stations that crew can meet their runners, and where can pacers be traded out. So first of all, right, Dale, if the runner is 60 years old or older, that runner can have a pacer from the very beginning. If
That's
they're
correct.
Wanted.
That's
right?
correct. Right. Yeah.
And so for the rest of us, where can pacers start?
Pacers can start in Uray.
Yes, you got the right answer, Dale. Good.
Thank you.
And
I had to think about it for a second, like which way we going? Yeah.
I have to think. So, but that's not. But crew do not have to wait until Uray to see their runners.
That's correct. Yeah, our aid stations that can be accessed by crew in this direction. The first is at Chapman, but again, as we mentioned earlier, there's no crewing on Ophir Pass Road because of the high traffic. So, and the aid station is off the road by a fair amount. And so what we're asking is people to park in Ophir in the town of Ophir, and then walk back about approximately 1.5, 1.7 miles to the aid station and crew their runner from there.
And the aid station captain is strongly encouraging people to come out there.
Yeah.
Don't feel like you're not wanted.
Right. Yeah,
exactly. They would love to have crew come out and meet their runners there.
Right. But it is a temptation to say, well, I'll just crew my runner from Ophir Pass, coming out of Chapman, and we can't, or going into Chapman. We just can't do that with the amount of traffic that's on Ophir Pass Road. The second one that is crew access is Telluride, which is in town Park. The third one that is crew access is Uray in Felon Park. And then after that, we get to Animas Forks, which, we've talked about, and Chris has mentioned that there's no way that you're going to beat, runner's going to beat their crew between Uray and Animas Forks. And then the aforementioned Sherman, which is, we talked about trusting the aid station captain. In the aid station, that's one of the premier aid stations I think that we have.
Yes.
Martha has, the outhouse. Yes. You have to go to the outhouse, right? Even if you don't have to go to the outhouse, you should go to the outhouse.
Yes.
And then Cunningham Gulch.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. I feel for runners that are that would like to trade out pacers at Sherman, because it is a long stretch. If you have one pacer that even if you trade pacers at Animas, so you've gotten one at Uray, to have somebody from Animas all the way to Cunningham, that's a long stretch.
Mm-hmm.
It's more than 30 miles.
Right.
So I understand the temptation to trade out pacers there, and I know some people will trade out pacers there, and that's fine. Just recognize that this year it's always a challenge to get to Sherman, but this year it's an even greater challenge. So make sure that you head out there early, and that may be a situation where you decide not to crew at Animas so that you can get out to Sherman, or maybe you have your pacer going out to Sherman with a different vehicle than the one that is crewing.
And if the pacer wanted some extra, you could probably have them hike over something and just wait for you there for the extra 24 hours or something.
Sure, why
just
not?
Camp over there.
Why not?
And then we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about those four-legged pacers that some people are used to running with their pets, especially their dogs. For the health and safety of everybody concerned, we're asking that no animals run with you. Pacer animals need to stay with people in the aid station and stuff like that. They can be brought to the aid station as long as they're under leashes, not just voice control, but under leashes, under restraint. But in terms of having your favorite dog run with you, we just can't do that, for the health and safety of everybody else.
What about finishing? With them?
Yeah, thanks for reminding me about that, Chris. If you'd love to have your pet, your parents, your kids, whatever, run in with you from Kendall Mountain Ski Hut to the finish, have at it. Yeah, but just not out on the course.
Exactly right. Well, Trevor, anything else that you wanted to make sure people know before they head out here to the San Juans?
I can't think of anything specific. I think be ready for any sort of weather conditions because, who knows what it's going to be like. It might be hot and humid or it might be really hot and then it might be raining in the afternoon. I think you guys got that last year.
Mhm.
I know the heat was the story
The heat
last
was
year.
the big thing last year. Yeah, but we've had hail, lots of hail. We've had
lightning storms.
We've had lots of lightning storms. All of those things. Brad Bishop wants to know, can he have his dog during the course preview runs?
Yes.
There's I have no problem with it. It's absolutely okay. I would say make sure you do have a leash for the dog because I have been on hikes out here where we've gotten, yesterday I saw a bear on my hike. And I've been on hikes out here where we went past a mama bear and cubs and a dog that was not on a leash kind of chased after toward those cubs. So you want to make sure you've got that leash and that dog is, you're not just training that dog. That dog is experienced at hiking if you're going to bring him on that, just because I would hate for something bad to happen to the dog.
And similar, like I always keep my dog on a leash because I'm afraid he's going to see a squirrel he really likes and there are cliffs nearby and the squirrel's going to be fine and he won't. So
very good point. Very good point. So, but yes, if you want to bring the dogs on, we did have a couple of dogs, I think, on the last one.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of Brad Bishop, hi Brad and Pepper. But on the 27th of May, Monday memo, there was a link to, I'm going to go back to Leave No Trace. There's a 30-minute orientation, Leave No Trace orientation course that you could take if you've got 30 minutes and you're just kind of wanting to do something to kill 30 minutes. I'll put that link in this week's Monday memo as well. But again, talking about just becoming familiar with the principles, familiar with the rationale, that kind of thing. That's an excellent way to do that. And that was on the 27th of May. We sent that out first time, but I'll send it out again.
Very good. We do want to let everybody know that despite the technical difficulties that he has had, our course director, Brett Sublett, is absolutely happy to answer any specific questions that you might have after watching this. BRETTSUBLETT, Brett Sublett at hardrock100.com. 100 is 100.com. Email him, ask him all the questions you have, and he would be more than happy to answer those questions for you if there's something that you didn't think about asking until after you've watched this.
And again, he will be doing a course, kind of a course update on the Thursday of Camp Hard Rock at 10 o'clock. It will not be a course detailed mile by mile description. It'll be kind of what you two have found, what he's found after course marking and stuff like that about the course. But there will be another opportunity to interact with the course people even as late as Thursday at 10 o'clock to get the most recent update.
There we go. Awesome. Anything else, Dale, that you wanted to make sure people knew before we head out?
I am so excited. This is, we talked about we talked about at the Run Committee meeting last week. It's like, okay, the next time we see each other, we're going to see each other in person. The next time I see everybody here, it's going to be in the Silverton Gym or someplace around there. And I know I speak for the entire Hard Rock organization that we are just so excited to have everybody here and joining us for what we hope is a memorable and meaningful experience in the San Juans.
Absolutely. 100%. I am looking forward to it. I've said it many, many times before, but the San Juans, Silverton, Colorado is where Hard Rockers belong in the summer. And guess what? It's summertime. So,
as of today, right? As of today.
Exactly right. So if you're not out here yet, get yourself out here, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Brian, thank you for pinching in for Dan. Good luck to Dan running Summer Solstice this weekend. Yeah. And Trevor, thank you so much for being a part of this. Dale,
shout out to Brian Colmo, who's been sitting in the back directing this, and
yes,
everybody will see him. We'll see him. He's the co-engineer, engineer aid station captain. You'll also see the labors of his work, a labor of love, when you come and see the finish line. That is Brian's. That's got Brian's name all over it. So.
Brian, is there anything? Maybe it's just going to be a surprise, but is there anything new for the finish line this year?
He's
surprise. It's going to be a surprise. All right.
He does. Let me see that.
I love it. I love it. All right, folks. you
We
gotta
put
get
him
out
on the
here to-
spot. We
You
put
got to
Brian
get out
on the
here to
spot.
figure out what it's going to be. Jim, thank you so much. Appreciate
You bet.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
We'll see
Good
y'all
seeing
soon.
you,
guys.
everybody. Trevor, Chris, thanks so much. Brian, thanks so much, man. Appreciate you all.
Just an old hard rocker running.